In the United States, craft breweries are on the rise. These local breweries are adding a unique twist to the beer drinking experience.
In other words, America's favorite drink just got crafty. Not your average beer enthusiasts, we set out to explore this new trend. And we're starting right here in our area. On this episode of Area Ales, we travel to Ludlow, Massachusetts. A small town known for its Portuguese-American culture, love of soccer, and the historic mills.
Located right in the heart of the mills is Iron Duke Brewing, a local brewery built on the foundation of hard work. After selling everything they own, two childhood friends, Nick Morin and Mike Marcoux, risked it all to turn their hobby into a successful business.
Let's go learn more about the story behind the beer.
Yeah, so our business is kind of, it's basically two businesses. So we run our taproom business on the weekends mostly, Friday, Saturdays, and Sundays. We've got, I think about 40, 50 seats in here where we have good crowds. We do, moderate hours. We don't do bar hours where we're open till 2 a.m. or 1 a.m. So we have this business we do on the weekends, and then Monday through Friday, or Monday through Friday afternoon, really we're manufacturing and doing wholesale distribution of beer. So right now, our territory that we sell to is just the immediate local area, so within 20, 25 miles of where we're sitting. I want to say maybe we have like 50 or 60 draft accounts, restaurants and bars that have our beer on tap. We do all the sales and distribution ourselves. It's very time consuming and it's labor intensive because we're just lugging kegs all over Western Mass. But it's actually, we found it to be like really rewarding where we get to meet our customers. We get to know all the bartenders and the restaurant managers and everybody who takes on our beer. We kind of have that one-on-one interaction. So when they buy our beer and they put it on draft, they know that they're going to see me or Mike or my brother-in-law, Jeff, where all three of us are going to be face-to-face with those people.
Using their backgrounds in construction and marketing, co-founders Nick and Mike officially opened the doors to Iron Duke Brewing in the fall of 2014.
I want to say back in 2009 or 10, we decided to make the jump and say, all right, well, we know how to build a brewery, we know how to make beer, let's start to build a business plan that we can actually do that. So it took us about 5 years from like that conversation of saying, hey, could we actually do this, to being here and like opening the door and like actually selling our first beer. So it was a long process. The mills back here along the river were at the time majority like vacant, not really, not a lot of businesses that were operating back here. So we liked the aspect of coming into an old building, so kind of have a vision for an old space to make it cool and breathe some new life into it. So we chose the mills, first off because it was close, it was like a couple miles from my house, but secondarily it's a space like you can't really find. It's hard to find another 100-year-old space that actually can be rehabilitated into a usable, I want to say clean space where it's not, you don't feel, maybe when you're driving through a little bit it doesn't feel quite as modern, but when you come inside we've kind of created somewhere in between a modern and a historic feel to it.
we take a closer look inside the brewery with assistant brewer Chris Lyles.
So kind of from beginning to end, we have, the grain shipped in, and we mill our own grain in the back, and then we bring it on out here and start in our mash tun. So this is an old milk style, and Nick fitted all this stuff up. So we throw the grain in there, there's some big screens in there, and we let it soak, and then all of the unfermented beer, which is wort, comes out. We pump it into this kettle, and we start boiling it. We boil all that stuff down. We add hops and a couple other ingredients. This is also a milk style vessel. I used to boil milk in that, and Nick also fitted that up. After we're done with that, we cool it down with our heat exchanger, and then it heads on over to one of the fermented vessels over there. So we've got a couple other tanks that we just added also. The bottom one there that's got the green one, that's the green machine. And then the top one is another milk vessel, but we're fermenting beer in both of those. After it sits for a while, we dry hop it, and then we'll bring everything out into clean kegs, and then they go into our chiller and sit in there for Mike and the other guys to pull out and bring to customers. It's all physical. I mean, I've already dropped like 20 pounds working here. You're humping kegs all over the place, you're shoveling grain out. We mill all of our own grain, so you're lifting bags into the mill. We have to clean that thing out, so we're climbing in and out of vessels and scrubbing and cleaning. It's really, you're just a glorified janitor. Just cleaning and shoveling and sweating. See, yeah, you just like come in on a brew day and you guys can do some shoveling and some mopping.
Wait, what?
See, yeah, you just like come in on a brew day and you guys can do some shoveling and some mopping. And you guys can do some shoveling and some mopping. Do some shoveling.
Challenge accepted.
No, but seriously, we learned a lot about the brewing process at Iron Duke that day.
So Monday morning we come in, we get together, we kind of go over the plan for what the sales look like for the week, talk about what we need to brew this week, what we need to brew next week, and go over the game plan as far as what's going to come out of the tanks, what's going to go into what packages. Tuesday, Wednesday, usually we're brewing, getting all the tanks full, making sure everything is ready to go as far as the next batch coming down the line the following week. And then Jeff and Mike are out in the world taking orders, delivering kegs. So that takes them pretty much from Tuesday through Friday afternoon to make sure everybody's full up. By the time Thursday afternoon, Friday comes, it takes almost a full day to get this place clean and ready for the public to come in. So Friday afternoon is basically just a cleaning day. Clean the whole place, basically top to bottom. And then doors open at 2:30, 3 o'clock, and it just goes 7 days a week.
Well, since we weren't much help on brew day,
Definitely not.
maybe we should just stick to drinking?
That is what we're good at. Let's go show our talents in the tap room.
It's not your corner watering hole where we're open 7 days a week till 2 a.m. like I said, but it's a place where we have a lot of functions. People come in. It's a super friendly place where we have one TV. I get a lot of flack for only having one TV, but it forces people to actually have a conversation. So we're super open behind the bar where we are inviting people to actually, engage us on whatever level, if they want to know about the beer side or how business is going or just how your day is going. So we try to create that community atmosphere.
With around 10 beers on tap, Iron Duke's bar includes 6 to 7 rotating beers, as well as a few staples.
We have what we call an Irish style porter. It's called Baby Maker. So that beer was really one of our first beers that we decided to make on a large scale. So that beer, the name, everyone thinks that like all our beers have names that make you think a little bit. So there's a lot of double entendre when it comes to beer names. But so Baby Maker specifically, the story goes that the first time I ever brewed that beer was back when I was in my garage, 7 or 8 years ago, whatever it was, and my wife was pregnant with our first child, and she was like 2 weeks past her due date. So we go to make, because when you brew beer, it's basically an all-day process. So the running joke for the day was, we're gonna have a couple of beers while we're brewing, and we're gonna be in the middle of the whole brewing process, and she's gonna go into labor, and then the beer may or may not ever get finished. So that was why we named it Baby Maker. So it turns out we ended up finishing the beer, and it came out good, and it was a beer that we kept making over and over, even when we were working on a small scale. So it was, it's got like a sentimental value to me because it was brewed right when my first child was born, and then it's had a whole fun story to it. Our second beer that we do a lot of is our IPA. It's called Dead Nuts. So our background, like I said before, is kind of a trades construction background, and my father-in-law is a carpenter by trade. So his favorite saying, like when you look around this place, anything that was carpentry related, he did. Like right down to like building these walls. And when something is perfectly level, it's dead nuts. Like that was his right. It's kind of a common slang term, but he loves saying it. Like you would hear him yell from across the brewery, like dead nuts, like it's perfect. So we were like, anything when we're working and we hear something, we're like, that's a great beer name. So why don't, we start writing these things down because we'd forget them all the time. But Dead Nuts was, so that's kind of named after my father-in-law, kind of, and it fit with our IPA. So what we say is it's a rye IPA. So the spiciness of the rye flavor and like the herbal spiciness, fruitiness of the hops, it's a nice balance. So like in having that balance, you have that nice Dead Nuts. Those are the two we do a lot. Nothing is sacred in that we're always gonna have it, but we try to always, as much as we can, have those two beers around. And then we've got a few other ones. We do a new beer, actually. It's a New England style IPA, so kind of the current trend that's going on in this area, and kind of probably all over, but mostly what they're calling it New England style IPA. It's more of like a softer, hoppy flavor, not as bitingly bitter and piney and resiny, but it's a little higher alcohol. It's almost like drinking a glass of like fruit juice, but it's super hoppy. So there's no fruit in it, but it has like a really nice soft, like fruity flavor. We call that one 4 a.m. So 4 a.m. was pretty much inspired by the fact that him and I are always here at like 3 and 4 a.m. starting our brew day. And again, it was us like, why are we doing this? We're like, the payoff is so far away from that 4 a.m. hour. So we just kind of joke around about like who else is working at 4 a.m. It's like guys who are doing stuff like what we are, and like you have to really love what you're doing. So we kind of came up with the name 4 a.m. just because it's like it's not yesterday and it's not today. It's like somewhere that people don't usually exist in the 4 a.m. hours. Our slogan is a celebration of hard work, because like I said, a lot of our inspiration comes at the end of the day when we're just having 2 or 3 beers. Like most people at the end of the day, they want to just sit and unwind and like totally mellow out. That's where we kind of bring it back. So celebration of hard work, and that ties back to the soul of the boot, because it's something that kind of represents who we are a little bit, and that's something we can all identify with. But it was a good friend of ours. She knew how to do any kind of artwork, so obviously we're like, can you come in and help us do a little bit of brainstorming? She did like design after design after design, and everything was great, but it wasn't like the thing, when you're always waiting for like the thing, and when you try to force it, it just never comes. And it's finally, literally, and it's cliche, but we're at a restaurant, and she's just like, I'm totally out of ideas. I'm sorry, we're gonna have to like go in another direction. You got to find somebody else. And she does this on like the back of a napkin. She's like, I got one more thing, and she's in the back of a napkin. And we're like, that's the thing. Like, I still have the napkin. Like, it's a literal thing that she did on the back of a napkin. So she came up with the boot print. It was just a little pencil sketch, and I'm like, all right, that's it. So Iron Duke, it's not tied directly to the boot print. So, like I said, in my past life, I was brewing a lot at home, and I had I had an old hobby, which I don't have a lot of time to work on anymore, is I worked on old cars. And I had an old Jeep. It was an '82 CJ that I loved. It was basically a Wrangler, but older, 30 plus years old. And the engine in the old Jeep was nicknamed Iron Duke. So the Iron Duke engine itself was like a little engine. It was terrible. It had bad horsepower. It basically couldn't even push my big 4x4 down the road. And it was just kind of, the name represented something that, like, the engine itself shouldn't have been doing what it did, So it was a little bit of like an underdog type story in that engine itself. So we kind of took the name Iron Duke, what shouldn't have been possible, running that engine for however long I did and beating it up endlessly, but it still kept going and going and going. So it was kind of who we are a little bit, is that story of what Iron Duke was for us. So unfortunately, I don't have my Jeep anymore. I had to sell it like everything else I owned to like start this whole project. So when we were raising money to do this, like between Mike and I, we're like, what can we sell? Unfortunately, I had to sell the Jeep. I had to sell my house. Like, we moved in with my in-laws for like a period of time. Like, I'm so endlessly indebted to everyone I know. So it's kind of like, if you knew me 5 years ago, I probably owe you beer for the rest of your life, because you gave me a bunch of favors and I owe you. So the Iron Duke thing kind of ties all that together. It's a fun process in that it's why we do this. Like, the reason that we love doing it so much is not because we work long days and long hours. It's because we get to drink beer a lot, and we're always creating something new. We're focused on trying to hit the surrounding area and just do small incremental growth so that we can control what that looks like 5 or 10 years from now. But the motivation really is just, love of beer. More than anything.
Well, there you have it, the story of Iron Duke Brewing.
Thanks for joining us on our adventure to learn more about the ales in our area.
All right, I'm done. That's a wrap.